After the bombing of Pearl Harbor on December the 7th, 1941, President Roosevelt felt he needed to do something to keep the west coast of the United States safe and secure from any treasonous activity. The incarceration of all persons of Japanese descent was seen as one way to keep the nation secure. He accomplished this with Executive Order 9066. The responsibility to carry out Executive Order 9066 was put under the United States Army and the Wartime Civil Control Administration. While people of Japanese ancestry were required to leave the Pacific coast from Washington to California, one question that quickly arose was, why didn't the Japanese from Hawaii have to be removed also? After all, they were not only closer to Japan, Hawaii was the specific location of the attack. From the beginning, there were questions about the president's right to deny civil rights that are guaranteed by the Constitution to the United States citizens. Japanese residents of the United States fell into two categories: the Issei, who were immigrants from Japan, and the Nisei, who were the children of the immigrants, and they were legal citizens because they were born on American soil. Did the president really have the authority to jail American citizens solely based upon their race? The climate of fear and racism didn't just pop up after Pearl Harbor, though. It had been growing for more than a half a century, beginning with the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1898 and continuing through the Immigration Act of 1924. The official policy of the United States was to eliminate immigration from all countries in the Far East, specifically China, but including Japan. After having been evacuated from the cities they lived, and upon arriving in the camps from Los Angeles and San Jose and other cities along the West Coast, all internees were checked in and given vaccinations to prevent camp-wide pandemics from happening from common diseases like measles, and of course in that day one of the dreaded diseases was polio, as evidenced by the president, who himself caught the disease and spent the rest of his life in a wheelchair. In an attempt to move the Japanese away from the coast, 10 camps were set up away from metropolitan areas and east of the Sierra Nevada range. The closest camp to San Jose was Manzanar in the Owens Valley, which is here in California. These camps were hastily built on barren and undesirable land. Entire cities would be constructed behind a barbed wire fence. When completed, the camp was closely guarded by a wire fence, guard towers, and an entrance gate. Similar to a state jail, all visitors were closely monitored, and anyone leaving had to get permission. The famous photographer Ansel Adams was commissioned to take pictures at Manzanar. One of the conditions that he was given, though, was that no photo could be taken that included the towers. He kind of got around it a little bit by taking a photo from the tower, which is what this picture is on his 4x5 negative black and white film here. By taking a picture from the tower, he hoped that people looking at it would put together that the only way he could get this point of view was that there were towers at the corners of the camp. Here's a recreation of one of the towers. You can see that it was recreated by the national parks because this is currently a national park site. The light at the top was up there because the local residents of Lone Pine felt that they were safer with the lights taken at night. And as you can see, the little photo credit here, I took this picture only a couple of years ago in April of 20. Hastily proclaimed the executive order, and without enough time to properly construct the camps, many internees had to help finish their quarters when they arrived. In the winter, bitter cold, and in the summer, intense heat greeted the Japanese as they arrived. In this posed photograph, we see some young Japanese men helping the contractor build the roads in the camp, while a young woman and her two children are looking on. In spite of the fact that between the cold of the winter and the immense heat in the summer, and the long distance to any significant city, Army guards constantly patrolled the edges of the camp. 120,000 people who were at Manzanar don't fit into a small space. The camp was located on 6,200 acres, and this little city was divided into blocks where barracks were grouped together, along with eating and recreational facilities by group. Manzanar had 36 different blocks. Each of the camps were designed to grow most of the food that were needed by the residents who were living there. Here we see one of the internees working in the rows. Would you guess that it was summer, or would you guess it's winter? It was decided that school should go on. Sometime after the war was over, the plan was to return the people in the camps back to society. School not only helped the kids to be on track, stay on track, but it represented one of the actions to try to make life normal. Recreation was also an important aspect of the camps. Not only was general recreation a part of the camp experience, but the camp high school continued to have sports. There was, however, one exception to high school sports, and that is that all of the games were home games because the residents, the Japanese Americans in the camps, were not allowed to leave camp. There were no away games. This was photographed by the famous photographer Dorothea Lange under a commission from the federal government. This photo shows the Central Park that was built to provide a place to walk and cool down during the summer months. Some of the internees approached the administrator and asked him for permission to make the park, and his response was, make me a list of what you need and I'll let you do it. The internees worked to keep the park and their local areas attractive and clean. The lines, the white lines you see on this photo, are the crop lines for the final print. Today, the National Park Service is rebuilding and unearthing some of the park from the 1940s. Here's a picture from 2017. Here is a picture from when the camp was active in the 1940s. Of course, it's in black and white. If you look really close, you can see the fence along the back of the property there. Each barrack was 20 foot wide by 100 foot long, and each family lived in a 20 by 25 foot apartment. As you can see, the exterior was tar paper. There was no wood or stucco or any other kind of covering. This is a recreation of a typical apartment within the barracks. The National Park Service has done this up in the last 15 or 20 years, and you could kind of get an idea from the picture of the Army-issued cots, the Army-issued blankets, and you get some idea how little the people could bring with them because their dresser is just that suitcase that they were able to carry. Everyone from the family had to sleep in the same room. Notice the two cots pushed together in the back of the top photograph, and then in the bottom of the photograph on the right. This is a view from the barracks, looking through the basketball court to the women's bathroom, latrine, and to the mess hall. When originally constructed, there was no regard for privacy, which of course is an important aspect of traditional Japanese culture. Here are some photos of the original build for the community bathrooms. You'll notice there were no dividers between the toilets, and there was no way to really have any privacy. The family apartments had no bathroom or shower facilities, and so one way or the other, you were going to have to leave your apartment, whether that was day or night, and go over to the common bathroom and shower facility there. As you can imagine, some women would only shower late at night or early in the morning to avoid being in the shower with other. This is a look at the mess hall, complete with a delivery truck, which is a 40s era truck. On Saturday night, they turned the mess hall into a dance hall. This collage represents the mall with the steps outside. And then you can see the inside there. Gathering around the family table for dinner was effectively lost during the camp. As you can see in the upper left-hand photograph up there, it was much easier, instead of sitting and eating with the family structure, to go for the kids to go off and eat with their friends, probably not unlike you might do in this situation. And as you can see from the pictures, these are just basically picnic tables, so it didn't really lend itself to sitting around and having a conversation anyway. The internees complained about the food when they arrived because the Army cooks made American food. The administrator worked with the internees and the chef to make meals that more closely resembled traditional Japanese food, fresh vegetables, rice, and some other things that would be more traditional in their diet. Some internees reported it wasn't bad when you considered it was made by Americans. The last photo of our lineup here was taken in April of 2017 when I went out there. It's on the approach to the camp. The irony of the plaque honoring World War II veterans and the guard tower in the background speak about the opposite realities of the war between Americans who were interned in the camp because of their race and other Americans who went overseas to fight the battle. As the war continued, the federal government asked for young Japanese internees to volunteer. Before they could join the Army, they had to pass a loyalty test and take a loyalty oath. The 442nd Infantry, which was made up exclusively of Japanese Americans, served with distinction as the United States island hop from the Pacific Ocean toward Japan.